Dan Ullman, Mike Beer, taking a look at race number 10 on Kentucky Oaks Friday at Churchill Downs. It's the Grade 2 Edgewood Stakes. We've got some nice 3-year-old fillies going a mile and a 16th on the turf. Let's take a look at this big field. And we've got last year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf winner. Hard to justify, the number 9 back in the entries for trainer Chad Brown. Flawless last year from 3 lifetime starts.
Have to like what you got out of her as a 2-year-old, Dan. We'll see how ready she is off the layoff, whether she's ready to move forward a little bit. Defeated a few of these horses at the Breeders' Cup the last time we saw her. She had a great trip that day. Some of the others weren't so lucky.
You're absolutely right. She used her tactical speed to get right up close to an easy pace while some other horses were getting banged around behind. Let's see what sort of trip Timeform US projects for Hard to Justify. And they have her in a decent spot from mid-pack at the half-mile pole. They have the 7, Maxi Superfly, expected to make the lead. I could see it. She's shown speed on synthetic in her career. Pink Polka Dots, the number 1, figures to take advantage of her rail draw. Way to Be Marie comes off a gate-to-wire victory. I think Pounce is going to show some speed, Mike. She has it. I know she came from way out of it in the Here Comes the Bride 2 starts back, but she's versatile.
Yeah, she is. So that leads you to wonder, what are they going to decide to do here? Because it kind of feels like in her most recent start at the Appalachian, maybe they made a mistake by going aggressively with her in that race. The trip really didn't work out for her, and she was bad. So we'll see how they decide to play it here. I think of the 2, and listen, if the 7 is going to run in this race, she'll be a long shot switching surfaces. I guess they just have to take their chances and try to make the lead. But the 1's really fast.
If the pace is hot, keep an eye on the 13, Dancing in Dixie, who has earned graded stakes placings in her last 2 races from coming way off of the pace. If the pace is hot, you can count on her to kick at a decent price. Let's start things off with the 1, Pink Polka Dots, who won her first 2 starts in pace-setting fashion, showing big early speed in both of those races. They tried to get her on the Kentucky Oaks Trail. They ran her in the Bourbonnette Oaks on the all-weather last time out. She didn't make the lead. I don't think she likes that surface as much as she likes turf. Tyler Gaffalio might be on a send.
Yeah, that was a big closer's race last time, too. She went a fast pace on the all-weather. That race totally collapsed. I don't care about that one, Dan. Her first 2 starts on turf, yes, she was absolutely loose on the lead, but she was loose on the lead because she's really fast. This is her surface. She's got a great post on the inside. They have to be going from the rail here and trying to make the lead. I think she's pretty dangerous in this race, and she's a great price on the morning line.
Great price on the morning line for a filly that's never been headed on turf and still has a lot of upside. Band of Gold will be making her turf debut in this race. She also comes out of the Bourbonnette Oaks, but that was a race where she got the right setup, right? She was sitting back off of that fast pace, and she sort of finished evenly to be beaten 3 lengths. The runner-up came back to win a stake on the dirt at Oaklawn with a 77 buyer. She'll have to handle turf, and she'll have to do it against a pretty good field.
Yeah, it just feels like switching surfaces, I don't really worry that much about. I mean, she has enough turf pedigree to handle the surface switch, and her overall form is okay, but she is making the switch into a really tough spot here. She just has to improve a lot.
Scalable is the number 3 Rapoli stable, Todd Pletcher. They're going to take a chance on turf with this gray daughter of Speightstown. This one ran 5th in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She earned a graded stakes placing as a maiden in the Chandelier. She's a horse that would benefit if this pace is fast and contested. There's not a lot of turf in this pedigree, though, so I'm really curious to see how she handles the switch. She's got the right turf jockey, Frankie Dettori.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you, though. I didn't see enough pedigree for them to be making this switch and to make me think she's just going to be way better on the grass. And so that just kind of makes me wonder, Dan. I know that they liked her as a 2-year-old. It makes me wonder if they're just doing this because they've tried her since the maiden win in 2 stakes races on the dirt, and she didn't run well either time.
If you take out the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf, a race where she was held up behind a moderate pace, Buku's won 3 in a row, including 2 graded stakes races at Keeneland, and she beat 3 of these same horses in the Appalachian last time out. Let's watch Buku run these horses down over a good turf course, and she's being very confidently handled by Martine Garcia with about 1/8 of a mile to go, and she's going to run by him and hold off the deep closers.
This is a really good performance off the layoff here, Dan. She was obviously ready to go. The trip was clean on the outside, and I just like the run she puts in. Some other horses are running really well behind her as well in here, and they're back in this spot. But this horse ran really well in this race. She was pretty unlike. I'm not going to suggest she was going to win the Breeders' Cup, but that was not an ideal trip for her. She showed plenty of potential at 2. Took a step forward last time. Major player in this race.
Mike, you liked the runner-up in the race we just saw, Mo Fox Given. I'm stunned she was 58 to 1 in that race. That's a tough beat. She ran a great second. She is a horse that had that potential on the way in. You spotted it. Can she take another forward move? She might get a setup.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that she can. I mean, there was nothing but good races on her card, Dan. I mean, she's been a little unlucky at times. She's been compromised at times. It seems like this race will set up the right way for her. It's just hard to go back to a horse like her. At least for me, it's hard to go back to her when she's 58 to 1 last time, and now she's 8 to 1 on the morning line. I'm probably not going back at her again in this race, but I won't be surprised when she runs well again.
The number 6, Pounce, won her first 2 turf starts, one on the lead in a 7.5 furlong first level allowance, and one from off the pace in the Here Comes the Bride at Gulfstream. Now, she was the beaten favorite in the Appalachian. She kind of got close to the pace that day and just was not good. I wonder if it was just the off turf course that worked against her. And sometimes just the Keeneland course is quirky and some fillies don't take to it. I think she might be a little bit of a pounce back candidate here.
Yeah, I can see that being the case too, Dan. I mean, I feel like you're not supposed. She was so good in her first 2 turf starts that I feel like you're not supposed to be too disappointed in the Appalachian last time. She got bumped at the start. She just decided, for whatever reason, Castellano decided to go instead of take back with her. She got caught wide on the first turn. She's wide up the backstretch. She totally gives it away in a race that totally collapses and goes to closers. I don't care about that race. Her prior 2 starts make her a contender in here.
Maxi Superfly is the number 7. This horse went gate to wire on the synthetic 2 starts back in the Cincinnati Trophy. She set that very fast pace in the Bourbonnette Oaks and understandably tired. The problem in this race, twofold. She's going to be trying turf for the first time, and there's a chance she could be on a hard chase against a fast horse from the rail.
Yeah, I just don't see her getting the trip that she's going to need to be effective in here, Dan. Maybe I'm wrong about that. She's got to switch surfaces for this race, and she's got to do it against a much better field. She pulled off that upset 2 starts back in a stakes race, but she just got loose that day. The pace wasn't fast.
Kali Spera began her career overseas, and she accomplished some good things as a maiden, earning a couple of group placings. She won her North American debut for Brian Lynch, albeit over the synthetic surface. And then last time out, she just got wired by Pounce in that 7.5 furlong turf race. Maybe it didn't set up for her. I think she's a little bit better than that running line.
Yeah, I won't disagree with that, but I still think it's fair to wonder how good is this horse. I really have no idea, Dan. She placed in 3 group races last year, and I guess she ran okay in a couple of them. The last one in particular, that was an okay performance. The other ones didn't really do a lot for me. I mean, she's been okay over here. I just wonder how good she is. And, 10 to 1 on the money line, that's not enough of a price for me.
Here's the likely favorite, the 9 Hard to Justify, 3 for 3 last year, including this victory in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. She beat 2 next out winners. And as Mike mentioned, she got a very sweet trip, just tracking a pretty big long shot through moderate fractions. It does look like she's in a little bit of trouble. There are a lot of horses with a look at this thing, but Hard to Justify always found just a little bit more.
That's what I like about her, Dan. I know that she had a good trip in this race, but it really looked like she was in a little bit of trouble there for the stretch. She was never letting those horses get by her at the end of that race. She did the same thing in the Aqueduct Stakes race in October, where it looked like she was in for a real fight through the stretch. She was never letting those horses get by her. Go back to her debut at Saratoga. She got no figure for that race. She had an impossible trip that day, a race that, forget about a first-time starter. Horses don't win overcoming trips like that, and she did it. I think as good as she looks on paper, she might be better than she looks on paper.
I believe her workmate is up next, the number 10, Dynamic Pricing, also going out for the Brown Barn, a debut winner going 2 turns at Aqueduct. In her 1 start last year, she ran quite well in the Swedish Chant. And last time out in the Florida Oaks, Mike, I just am not sure that race exactly set up for her.
Yeah, the race did not set up for her. I just don't like the trip that she got at any. I don't think she was in a good spot at any point in that race. For whatever reason, Jose Ortiz decided to take her all the way back at the start. She was just never in position to run there, and she actually passed horses late. But for me, she had absolutely no chance that day. I thought her Swedish Chant was actually a good performance off the layoff. She ran really well in there, but she still looked green to me in that race. And then I go back to her debut, Dan, Way to Be Marie, we're going to get to in a minute here. That horse, I think, is a contender in this race. That horse was on a clear lead through the stretch, slow fractions. This horse, Dynamic Pricing, had no idea what she was doing in there and almost cost herself the race. She was very inexperienced, and you could tell, but she still came with a big run at the end and got up. I just think she has a lot of talent, and maybe things just haven't all come together for her yet. It could come together for her here. She's going to be a great price in this race. Irad takes over. I'm very interested.
You will know her late for Irad and Chad Brown at a price. Here's Way to Me Marie, the number 11. She was a maiden winner from off the pace at the fairgrounds. She got wired by Pink Polka Dots, and she said, if you could do it, Pink Polka Dots, I can go to the front in a first level allowance. So that's exactly what she did last time out, and she got a really nice breather on the backstretch under Florent Giroux before sprinting home. But while the trip was there for her, I really liked the way she did it. She looked good in the stretch.
Yeah, I like that about it too. She did have an easy trip, but I just liked the way that she put everything together there and ran a big race. It got a good figure for her. Two back, I thought she ran really well with no chance to get the Pink Polka Dots on a clear lead, but she was a good second that day. She just keeps getting better every time Actress sends her out there, and Actress has just been winning everything for a couple of months now.
Simply in front is the number 12. She ran second in the Grade 1 at Talma, as only a second start maiden up at Woodbine last year. She made her first start for Eddie Keneally in the Appalachian last time out. Again, we talked about that. That was a race that went to closers. She was one of the late kickers moving at the end for fourth.
Yeah, and I thought overall she got one of the better trips in the race too. I mean, she was off of a layoff there, 3-year-old debut. So I certainly feel like you want to be open to her improving quite a bit second off the layoff here. But all in all, Paco Lopez gave her a great trip in that race, just followed the winner around the track, and she just couldn't quite kick on with those horses.
Dancing in Dixie, I thought, had a tough trip in the Ginger Brew 3 starts back, and I liked her in the Florida Oaks at a giant price, and she ran quite well. She didn't break very well. It's kind of been a problem with her. She came 4 wide into the stretch. She ran on for a piece, only getting beat a length, and then she backed that race up in the Appalachian, Mike. She came with a good kick, but she also got a very good setup. I think if you give her a clean run in the stretch, she'll come with a run. Now she's got to prove she can get it done in one of these races.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Listen, you're right about everything you said. Her last 3 starts, they're all good, and they give her a chance in here. As time goes on, this running style just becomes more and more problematic. She has no speed. She always has to pass a ton of horses through the stretch. And when you keep moving up in class and facing better horses, it just gets harder and harder to do.
Completing the field is recent maiden winner Ragtime Lady, who scored at a mile at the fairgrounds, earned a career best 75 Beyer speed figure, rallying from off the pace. She's been beaten by Way to Be Marie, but she ran pretty well in that maiden special weight in her second lifetime start. She's got a lot to prove, breaking from a tough outside post against a very tough field.
Yeah, exactly. I listen, I don't want to go on and on about this. I definitely want to use her in here. This is a really bad post. If she had drawn somewhere towards the inside, I might have even put her on top in this race. I thought she ran really well last time, and she was dirtied up going into that race. This is a pretty tough spot for her, but I think she has a lot of talent.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Grade 2 Edgewood. I like Mike's idea in here of trying to get a price home with the 10 dynamic pricing, also using the 14 Ragtime Lady. But dynamic pricing, you made a compelling case for. Maybe things haven't exactly gone to plan in some of her in-race from a strategy standpoint. She might get the right setup here.
Yeah, we'll see. She's got a lot to prove here. She has to grow up a little bit. You can tell she's really green in her races, and I think it makes it hard on her riders, but I think the talent's in there, Dan. If she can just put it all together here, I like to bet them in races like this where I know they're going to be a price, and I think she's good enough if she can get the right trip.
I wish I was more clever. I just think Hard to Justify might fall into another good trip. If the 1 and the 7 go out there, I think she could be sitting third with a chance to get a jump on these deep closers turning for home, and then she's going to have to show off that courage she showed in the Breeders' Cup. She'll have to do it off a layoff at a short price. 9, 4, 5, 13 for me. 10, 9, 14, 4 for Mike. Grade 2 Edgewood, Kentucky Oaks Friday. Good luck.